To opt in, and so rather than having the government make the decision for those facilities, they got to make it for themselves. And I think that's a good idea, because as I was saying, this lets the people that run those facilities, that are familiar with the people there and familiar with the facilities themselves, make the decision.
District of Columbia versus Heller case in 2008 that a handgun ban was unconstitutional because the Second Amendment, according to Justice Antonin Scalia's majority opinion, quote, surely elevates above all other interests the right of law-abiding, responsible citizens to use arms in defense of hearth and
not all public places should allow guns. Obviously, some of the state-owned, all the state-owned buildings. But when it comes to private enterprises, I think they should be the ones that should be able to set whether you can or cannot bring a weapon in.
Preference would be not to have them in church because they're weapons, and so somehow I guess in a religious sense it seems like it might somehow be contradictory to the purpose of being there. On the other hand, as a matter of public policy, as I was saying, I think that if the people who operate a church, which is a private institution, make the decision that they think people would be safer if some people in the church had a firearm, then they should be able to make that choice. I remember several years, it's been quite a while now, but several years ago there was a shooting in a church, and a lot of people were injured. And so people who operate a church like that, and I think it was, as I recall, it was a very large church. There were a lot of people there, and they were unarmed. And so, if the people who run a church, if their board of directors and pastor and the like decides, well, we think that allowing people to have firearms here would make us safer because something like that might not happen, then that choice is one they should be able to make.
I don't think guns should be allowed in school. The state of Georgia allows school superintendents to approve teachers carrying guns. We've said no to that. Again, we're in a state that's heavily Republican, and so many of our leaders at the state level have opened up opportunities for people to carry guns in schools, but our school board has said no, we're not going to do that.
I don't think teachers should actually have the authority to carry a weapon in school. All the schools have a school resource officer who's trained, who's received a lot of training to carry a gun. You've seen in the news some issues already where teachers have brought guns to school, and that's caused issues, maybe an accidental discharge or something like that. Yes, it adds a little extra protection, but at the same time, they don't have the training that law enforcement does, and that's probably the biggest issue with not having them allowed. The rise in the number of school shootings goes back to the change in how we're being brought up nowadays versus, a decade ago or a century ago where, the problems at home that you see nowadays, you didn't have those, or social media, you didn't have that back then. That plays a big part in it too. But I think it goes back to parenting, proper parenting. The issues that we're seeing today, the kids that do have the school shootings, you didn't see that 10, 15 years ago. And you can look at the statistics from back then and look at them now, and you can correlate that's one of the issues. And that's
the mass killings that we've seen and the incredible tragedies that we've seen, the vast majority of those have been carried out by individuals who have some sort of mental health illness or disease. Oftentimes they're on medications or have come off their medications and haven't been tracked to be certain that they're staying on their medication. So as a physician, I can tell you that the way that we treat mental health disease in this country is obnoxious, is abhorrent. We are not doing what we need to do as a society for folks who have significant challenges from a mental health standpoint. And we're not making certain that they gain the kind of treatment and supervision that they require. And consequently, when folks, their knee-jerk is when these things happen to say, okay, we need to do something about the access to guns. The knee-jerk we ought to make certain that we address the incredible challenge that we have as it relates to mental health in our society, and we're not doing it. And we haven't addressed it as a society for a variety of reasons. But what we need to be doing is, and I think that would go the biggest way towards stopping the kind of mass killings and gun violence that we've seen in this country.
67.8% of murders involve firearms.
But psychologists say they should listen to their children. If the children have heard about school shootings and they're scared, the parents should use that as an opportunity to talk to them about it. And so that is as a parent myself, that's the approach that I would take, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But as far as whether children should be exposed to that, that's also a choice for parents to make. Do they want their children to watch news and so forth, even though they might hear scary things? And there are a lot of scary things on the news. I mean, not just school shootings, but a lot of other scary things too. And parents have to decide if they want there are pros and cons. I mean, advantages of watching the news are that you learn more about what's going on in the world around you. You learn about our political system. You learn about other countries. So it's an important thing for people to learn, but you also hear a lot of scary things. And I think, it does make sense for parents to encourage their children to be informed citizens and watch the news, but they should also pay attention to what their children are watching so that if it does have a negative effect on them, they can talk.
We don't even enforce the laws that we currently have on the books as a society. And especially the federal government. The federal government has been, over the last 4 or 5 years, decreasing their enforcement of our current gun laws that are on the books. How you track people who owns guns and who's able to purchase guns and the like. And what that means is that we're chasing a problem that probably could be addressed in big ways by the laws that are currently on the books if we would enforce the current law, but everybody thinks, oh no, we need a new law because of what has happened. So I think that one of the principles we have is to enforce the laws that we currently have